Reading the webcasting of the meeting rules, this meeting will be recorded for placement on Council's website for the purposes of broadening knowledge and participation in Council issues and demonstrating Council's commitment to openness and accountability. All speakers must ensure their comments are relevant to the issue at hand and to refrain from making personal comments or criticisms or mentioning any private information. No other persons are permitted to record the meeting unless specifically authorised by Council to do so. For opening prayer, we give thanks for the contribution by our pioneers, early settlers and those who fought in the various wars for the fabric of the Tenterfield community we have today. May the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that we are meeting on today. I would also like to pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Yuckinbal, the Kamilaroi and Bundjalung nations and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present. We only have the one apology there, Peter Petty. Can I have a mover and a seconder please to accept that apology? Councillor Gary Berry. Tom Peters, second. All in favour? Against? Carried. Disclosures of declarations of interest. One down the end of the table. I have two on the theory that if you're not sure, register it and move all down. In relation to GOV 46/21 in the operational report, this is in relation to the 5 development applications Tenterfield National Monument Association have lodged and have had approved under delegated authority, but they are in business paper, so I'll put that down. The second one is COM 15/21 to deal with the addendum item, Attract, Connect and Stay project. I'm Chairman of Tenterfield Care Centre Limited, who are also involved in the project. I have no financial benefit out of either of those projects. I will be staying in the room.
Thank
you. We'll vote if required. Confirmation of previous minutes. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes? Bob Rogan, second Michael Petrie. All in favour? Against? Carried. Table of documents. Councillor Bourne Petrie, will you indicate that you are tabling the document?
No, I'm urging like,
Sorry. You told me tabling the document.
no, urgent.
Okay, there's no tabling the documents. Is there any urgent late or supplementary items in business?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Bourne Petrie.
Yes. So, I've given it to Elizabeth, but it is that the Tenterfield Shire Council contact local members in Elsavin to request the Health Minister to implement an urgent independent investigation of the management of Tenterfield Hospital, including interviews with all staff who have resigned in the last 3 years.
Second.
I'll second that.
Sorry, John's calling this word really hard.
Yeah, that's all right.
Moved to them.
Moved by Bronwyn, seconded by John. Councillor Nish. You want me to fill that out? Bronwyn?
Right, so yet again, we've had no doctor at the hospital for a period of 4 days. The Dr. Ali, who's there, who is still up there doing the GP clinic in the separate building out front, but he's not in the hospital. But when whatever transpired, we were without a doctor yet again, despite all the promises that I cannot recall to mind any of the promises that Hunter Newman made at the meeting you attended, Greg, with the minister's office. I don't actually think there were any of them. In addition, we've had at least 16 or 17 registered nurses resign in the last 18 months to 2 years. So that in itself indicates there's something wrong to any employer that says there's either poor culture, there's poor bad management, or there's some attitude problem, or there's a problem. And I know that the manager of the hospital did say in that same meeting you attended that the formula was fine, the staffing numbers. We all know, and we know from behind the scenes the formula is not right. And we also know that Dr. Ali could work 30 days straight without being released. So I just think enough is enough. Stop brushing this aside. And we're also still hearing that people are being forced south instead of going north or east as they so wish, which we promised will not happen again. So I think enough's enough, and we as council should be taking the lead in this and showing to our community that we do care. And we're losing people. We're losing Councillor Rogan. We've already lost critics and other people. So that's enough for me. I think everyone knows the issue.
While we're hearing from Councillor McNish, seconder, can you please check the motion there for accuracy before I put it? Councillor McNish?
I just follow on what Councillor Petrie said, Mr. Acting Mayor. I called from a gentleman the other day, cut himself badly, chopping wood, was in the hospital at 8 o'clock in the morning. Pressed the button, the door, the whole place
What,
popped
an independent investigation twice?
up.
Okay. You could have yelled
Three
at me.
times in 10 minutes to press the button. Finally, another gentleman came up with a suspected heart attack. He pressed the button, and his nephew hit the hip. Finally, 2 nurses turned up at the door. This is at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's not like midnight. You understand people like that at midnight. The gentleman who rang me, when he finally got inside, they insisted he did a COVID thing. He got his app switched up or something, otherwise I thought he would. And he was abused for not doing it properly. I said, who were the nurses? And he doesn't know they were strangers and obviously agency nurses. That's just one example of some of the problems that are going on there. And as Councillor Becker said, it all comes back to management. And I think we've got very, very serious problems. When you hear this is only one case, there's probably lots more out there. And well, we're the only body really who can do anything about it. And we've tried and tried. I know we've had meetings with COP and other meetings and all that and go, but they promise you everything, but nothing ever changes. So I'm not very happy to second Councillor Petrie's motion. I hope something comes of it.
Thank you, Councillor McNish. Does anybody want to speak against the motion? Being no speakers against the motion, I'm going to put the motion because there's no opposition. All in favour of the motion on the board there? Against? Carried.
No, unanimous.
I will take it unanimously. Thanks, Sue.
I could spell it.
And any additional information that people have, they can
That's
supply
what you
that
get.
or pass through the channels to put in the letter for examples. Okay, there is one other urgent latent supplementary item, addendum item COM15/21. I'll move in a second to accept that, please. Gary, all slow this morning, you have another second up? Brian Murray, all in favour? Against, carried, so that will be added to the agenda immediately after 14/21. We have no community consultation, there's no mayoral minute. We do have an item to be considered confidential. That is item ECO 11/21, hire of civil services, etc. And I'll move in a second to have that considered in confidential. Bronwyn Petrie and Tom Peters, all in favour? Against? Carried. Open council reports. The first one is COM 1421 on page 39. Traffic committee recommendations. Can I move in a seconder? Michael Petrie and Bob Rogan, all in favour? Against? Carried. This will be presented by the engineering department. David Council.
Thank you, Councillors. We have from our traffic committee minutes, our recent meeting, we have the minutes within the council agenda further on. This report relates to 3 specific items that actually require adoption of a recommendation rather than all others. So the 3 items there.
Yeah, and it was included in.
The committee has actually made a recommendation to council, is that with regard to the Riley Street load limit, the Riley Street road, we remove the tap pole island with the road calming device from Riley Street. That's located in the Melaleuca Court intersection. With regard to timber bridges, the load limit review, the removal of all remaining load limits on timber bridges currently funded for replacement once they have been completed. The removal of any remaining speed humps on bridge approaches, the removal of permanent speed restrictions on timber bridges, with the exception of installation of temporary speed restrictions for bridges under roadworks, the installation of advisory speeds in conjunction with bridge warning signs of only local roads, council roads, where necessary at the discretion of the council director of infrastructure, and then further items relating to immediately signage requests at Torrington, that one sign to the Torrington village underneath the existing Gilligan's Lane, indicating distance to the turn-off, and the one sign at the Stanham intersection indicating their locations via the Torrington Road.
Any questions of David in relation to that report? Councillor Brian Petrie.
Just if we can add the word on in part 2, fourth dot point, second line between signs and only. Second line from the bottom.
It's only on local council roads. Signs here. Signs only on local council roads. And what do we want to add?
Signs on.
Just the word on. Oh, sorry. Sure. Maybe only on local council.
After signs and before only.
Yeah, should be added on.
Okay.
Only on, mate. Okay, that was it?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll put the recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. Item ENV 9/21, short-term rental accommodation.
Excuse me, we were doing the COM 15.
Sorry. The addendum item, COM 1521, Attract the Next Day project. This is being presented by Harry, the Manager of Economic Development and Community Development.
Councillors, this report relates to basically to provide instant members and support for the submission of expression of interest for the Attract Connect Stay project, which is primarily designed to attract medical staff to Tenterfield. Not necessarily doctors, but including doctors, nurses and allied health support. We understand the issues that we have in Tenterfield with this area. I know that through the workshop that we had last week with Kath Cosgrove, that the main issue, one of the biggest issues for us in Tenterfield is actually the staffing of our aged care facilities in Tenterfield. The issue for us here with this is the funding stream that is required to be funded through the community. I have in principle support from the Tenterfield Care Committee to allocate $20,000 a year over 3 years for the project, which is fantastic. And Tenterfield Shire Council, we believe, can give in-kind support of $10,000 to $15,000 a year for the administration and providing office space and technical support for the positions. Hunter New England have also indicated that they could support in kind similar support for the administration of the position. However, I would think that that's probably not likely or not needed. So it's really about Tenterfield being an attractive place to bring medical staff to Tenterfield. Personally, I don't think we have a huge issue other than for aged care, of course, in what we currently have, and council people to work on the hospital. So, I recommend the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. And before I open up questions, just further to that, the Mayor, myself, Kylie and Harry and some members of his team attended that seminar at the Golf Club Thursday week, I think it was, from memory, you know.
That's correct.
And the expression of interest had to be lodged fairly quickly. I contacted Hunter New England Health, and I can confirm Harry's comment that they have committed in kind. They won't put any dollars in. They reckon they have no budget. I also got them to contact the lady, Heather, I don't know her surname, in charge of Primary Health Network, to see if they had any money. Similarly, they are prepared to offer in kind assistance, but as soon as some grant money opportunities come up, they have pledged that they would put in an application to any grant that suited this particular project. Harry and I had a discussion, and we honestly believe that if we don't put the expression of interest in, we will not be able to take part anyway. But funding is the issue, and if at the end of the day, when they're working out who's going to be one of the 4 or 5 pilots schemes that will be put up to run, don't have the funding or will drop out. But let's put our hat in the ring first without eliminating ourselves on financial grounds, because there is benefit to the community if we participate, but not if the council is going to fund it. The council is not going to fund it, and that's not what it's asking for. It's asking to support the submission of interest. Any other questions of Harry? Councillor Petrie?
So the workforce recruiter, will they just be sourcing people to come in for the positions? Is that the objective?
Do you want to handle that, Harry? Or?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Petrie, yes, what the idea is, and this is based on a program that runs out of Canada, which was presented to us, is that we have a part-time coordinator whose role it is to basically sell Tenterfield, if you like, as a place for medical people to come and reside and work within our community. So their role is to attract and encourage people here, get them positioned into the community, and then look after them. The model that they showed us was quite in depth, and the support that the community in Canada, where this was being run, was quite extensive, to the point that they actually providing housing and all other matter of incentives for people to come. So that's the role of the person, is to actually sell the community. It's something we already do fairly well, but as Deputy Mayor has pointed out, this is an opportunity to perhaps raise that profile a little bit further, and we need to be at least in consideration for the project. For what? No. Sorry.
Councillor Berry?
With this, Harry, do they give you any indication of where they're going to look for recruit staff? They're going to go south or north?
No, the council, they don't, and really, they, the impression I got, and Deputy Mayor may have another view, but the impression I got is that they withdraw people from virtually anywhere. Their primary focus is Australia, so anywhere in Australia they have the certain qualifications to come. So it's not centred towards Queensland or New South Wales, or North and South, or whatever, just wherever those people might come from.
Just given where we geographical location, it just makes sense to go north.
Yeah, given the limited resources that this person would have, I would assume that their immediate focus would be to look down north in the Brisbane and Toowoomba area initially, but then that would go out radiate out further on, I think, over time. So the program is designed to run at this point for 3 years, and I guess the longevity of the program would depend on the success of how many people can actually attract to the community. But long term, it's an issue for us regardless of whether the program is voted on. It's something that needs to be addressed in our community.
Councillor McNish?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Harry, and I do support the recommendation. I think we're overlooking the basic problem is when we get someone here, they're not being looked after. Now, Councillor Petrie mentioned the Egyptian doctor up here, who came here all over the paper and brought the wife and the family, bought a house, and really was prepared to settle in the community. And South Lakes wasn't treated the way he should have been at the hospital up here, and as a result, he has resigned. Also, another opportunity with foot wisdom is making me, but I think there are big problems with the leadership of Tennant Care Centre. I know people who I'm very close to, one person particularly works up there, and you know, she tells me a few things what's going on, what she doesn't tell me, but there are problems with staff there, especially with carers, but that's another story. The thing is, we can sell Tennant as the most beautiful town in the world. When they get here, we're going to be not looking after them. And I think that is part of the inherent problem we've got. I don't know if other councils would agree with me, but if you don't look after your staff, what's the point of getting them here and promising them everything?
I'll just correct one thing, Councillor McNish. He didn't resign. His visitation rights were withdrawn by the hospital by Hunter New England Health.
Was that through inefficiency or?
Not going into the matter, the simple matter is that he did not resign.
Yeah, okay, I'll stand corrected in that one, but the point is he's not there anymore.
That's correct. He's doing the clinic.
Yeah.
Councillor Ford?
I just might ask Harry a question. Where do you say this has been tried? Again, this strategy?
So this has been tried in Canada.
Oh, Canada.
Yeah, and it was, was it Marathon? Was it Marathon, Deputy Mayor?
It's a town of similar population and circumstance to Tenterfield, and I just can't recall.
It was Marathon, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. And it has worked successfully. I think they're now into year 5, 6,
Yeah.
something like that.
I guess the issue there is the, and look, if I can speak through to Mr. Mayor, I can see where this would work in certain communities that really do struggle to attract medical staff, in particular doctors, and that to their community. The comments that have been made, I think, are pretty right. I think if we can't actually, we don't have difficulty in attracting people to our community. The problem is in retaining them. So that's where the issue is. So, and I think where this program has been successful has been in areas that have really struggled to attract people in the first place. So they are keen to make sure that when those people get here, that they're well looked after. So that's our concern that we have here, is that there needs to be a broader conversation within the community about how we progress into the future. And this is not just a conversation for Tenterfield. We're hearing the news every morning on radio, but just about every hospital across the state are having similar problems. So I think the whole cultural thing that's going on in health is widespread, and that's we can spend a lot of time there attracting people, but if we can't look after them, then they're not going to stay. So that's our situation. But it's like everything. I think we need all these things to be working for us to resolve this issue.
Paul also was at the forum, I forgot to mention that earlier. You got anything to add, Paul?
No, I think that from what people are saying, it's really about keeping people here or retaining them and showing an interest in them, as you mentioned, Harry, really making them feel welcome and trying to keep them here. So it looked like a really good program team.
That's the connect and stay component rather than the attract.
Yeah, that's right.
And I pointed that out to Hunter New England when I spoke to them. It's connecting, keeping them in the community and getting them to stay. Any further input before I put the motion? Recommendation, sorry? Okay, there's the recommendation that we provide in principle support for the submission of an expression of interest. All in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Back into your main business paper, page 42, EMB 9/21 short-term rental accommodation. Manager of Planning and Development Services.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
Thank you.
Good job.
Can I have a mover and a seconder to deal with this, please? Alderman Petrie and Councillor Murray. All in favour? Carried. Right.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This report is presented to Council just to advise of a new statewide regulatory framework for short-term rental accommodation. Probably you would not more under the Airbnb framework, if you like, so hosted or non-hosted short-term rental accommodation. The planning reforms were commenced in 2017. The council approved the initial paper back then, and again in 2018 in support of the new framework. What it essentially means is that people can now run Airbnb style developments without having to come to council to get approval. So there will be a regulatory framework, so they'll need to register with the state government. There's an annual there's a registration fee of $65 and then $25 thereafter. They also need to comply with fire regulation provisions. So it will make it a lot easier. We don't really have any issues with Airbnb style accommodation in our shire, so there's no limitations on the number of nights that can be used. So it's a 365 a year. Other regional areas such as Byron Bay have limited the number, but we didn't choose to limit that. So I think it's a step forward and allows people to get on with their small businesses.
Any questions of Domain in relation to that report? Councillor Roland Petrie.
Is there any requirement for inspections or compliance to check the fire stuff and things like that?
No, through Mr. Mayor, Councillor Petrie, it's a self-regulating process. Council won't be undertaking inspections. At this stage, there's no indication that we would be called on if there were any issues. We would get to see that. It comes into force on the 1st of November, so we may get to further information on it. Or they may have a local fire brigade.
Any further questions, Domain? Put the recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. Page 51, item ENV 10/21, development application 2021.064. Recommendation is the council approve development application 2021.064 for a two-lot subdivision boundary adjustment of lots 1, 10 and 14, BP 1155323, subject to the conditions contained in the draft consent attachment 2. Again, Domain, aye.
Yep.
Aye, move and second, please. Councillor McNish and Councillor Rogan. All in favour? Carried. Mate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This report is presented to council as council is the owner of the land and the purchaser requires consent for the sale to proceed. So one of our industrial parcels in the industrial estate, the purchasers are the owners of the existing adjoining lots and they wish to separate that lot and consolidate into their own lots, if you like. So we start with 3 parcels and end up with 2. So we're essentially splitting that lot in half to deal with to consolidate their own land. In accordance with our policy, the limited delegated authority in dealing with development applications and combined development certificates, because council is the owner of the land and the consent is required for the sale, the application was outsourced to a town planning independent council. That report is found in your attachments with the recommendation for approval. It's a very straightforward application, it would not be done under delegation, but apart from the fact that council is the owner, is the reason it's being presented.
Any questions of Domain? All in favour? Against? Carried. I don't think I need your vote.
No.
Oh, you do at the end, not at the start.
Not the start.
We doubled, didn't we?
Yeah.
Waiting for some guidance. Page 54. Item ENV 1121, Tenterfield Shire Sale Yards Management Plan. The recommendation is the council. Sorry, there's an amendment to this one.
Yeah. No. I've got to type it in, I'm sorry.
You're right.
Excuse me, while all this business, I'll just ask a question.
Yeah.
That's that.
I think we'll leave it until sale yard plan is discussed, maybe.
I'm finding this hard to read, I'm sorry.
We haven't actually moved what we can do with it.
I'm just asking if you can ask if we shall do that.
I'll put you down as a comment against them.
Oh, no.
And horses.
Wait. Got it right the first time.
And
First time. Why am I on 28 days?
yeah,
Yep.
days.
Those submissions.
On this policy. That'll be adopted at the end. Public consultation. Okay.
That's line number 2, should be given no submissions.
If submissions are received from the public.
Are received.
From the public on this policy. That submissions are presented at a council meeting. Discussion prior to adopting the policy.
Okay, we've got the amended officer's recommendation that Council 1, that the Tenterfield Shire Council draft Salia management plan be placed on public consultation for 28 days. 2, if no submissions are received by the public on this policy, that it be adopted at the end of the public consultation period. Or 3, if submissions are received from the public on this policy, that submissions be presented at a council meeting for discussion prior to adopting the policy. Can I have a mover that we deal with it? Councillor Petrie, Councillor McNish, seconded. The Corporate Administration Officer.
Unfortunately, Mark Cooper's not well through though, but I think we'll take it as read. We've had the discussions on it previously, and if there's any questions, happy to take them. But yes, I think it's all fairly straightforward.
Councillor Bronwyn Petrie, you
My
indicate?
only question was, because Mark did talk about locking the gate, I'm just confirming that those gates are locked when there's no one there. We've already seen what's happening in Glenniness twice at the sales with cattle being removed unlawfully.
Through you, and I don't want to lock at the moment. It's something I'll speak to Mark Cooper about and discuss that. Yes. I agree.
I think we've got to be able to.
You question, Councillor?
I think you've got to be able to unload down those other ramps. Though you can't lock the ramp 4 and 5. If somebody comes out to load the cattle and they're all down, they've got to be able to unload the cattle.
Once again, it's really, if we had a sign there with a number that people would call to call Mark, then I think that would alleviate that problem too. But certainly I had that further discussion.
Any other questions of Paul in relation to the report?
On this plan here on the Soliards here, that plan was done years ago, and the truck wash is still down in the paddock. What have you got the plan up the top here above the canteen there? Like that's all happened. Not even. The signs are still in the paddock, like where they're going to put the truck wash and that. I've been going to Soliards meetings now for probably 7 years. They've been discussing putting a double-decker ramp in, and they've had the plans and everything else. They've had a lot of money to do it, and there's still no double-decker ramp out there. There's supposed to be 2 double-decker ramps go on the roadside, and the truck wash. They've had $600,000 sitting in the bank. I don't know, and nothing's been done. Why don't they do something? Like you get these things, and you keep going back to the Soliards committee meetings every 2 months, and you go through the same bloody rigmarole, and nothing's done. Like 6, 7 years, and the bloody ramps aren't in. The truck wash is not there. What's his name? Andre, when he was there, he came up with the bright idea. He had to put a bloody $300,000 roof over a truck wash. Be the only one in Australia, that one. You know, and the whole thing wants to put together and do something about it. It's just bloody, sure like you got to say, oh, you'll make these laws and everything else. You got to do a bloody, a safety check when you go in and get the copies to do this and do that. And, it's just the whole thing's got to be changed, do something with it.
3 minutes, Yes, so the ramps, there with the engineering department at the moment, and I'm not sure there's any further update that you'd like to make.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can just update, we have been having further discussions with the SARYA's manager, particularly looking at the loading ramps. We're still looking at the two loading ramps out on the front there, on a 45-degree angle, so that we're going to maximise the use of the space out there. We have been dealing with the preferred supplier of the loading ramps that the council were looking at originally, and we're looking at a slight amendment to the plan we had drawn up. Rather than looking at the bottom ramps, actually looking at the top ramps. There's advantageous aspects of it for the drivers and safety of the drivers, particularly the way they reverse in, so they're not reversing into the light and the glare. Also with the safety that they'd be reversing, looking into their own on-side mirrors rather than off-side mirrors. So it makes it easier and safer for the truck drivers. So that's so we certainly taken over and want to progress it and get on with it. So that's where we're at with the loading ramps. Just with the comment on the truck wash position being the old plan, just with this management plan as it is, we don't have currently an actual development approval to move the yet. So it's be probably preemptive to actually say we're putting it somewhere else if we don't actually have the development there. So that's the other part of it. We're trying to get that progressed so that we can get the development consent approved to move the truck wash component up near the amenity house. As soon as that happens, we can update the plan.
Wasn't that done 3 years ago? It's glad it done. Was it decided to put it beyond the campaign?
3 years ago we got the grant. Certainly it's been about a year. And what we're looking at, you may mention just to the awning and the roof with the trade waste. That's what one of the key issues we're looking into is quite significant extra cost in that. We were adamant that we didn't want to go over budget. We haven't set the budget. We want the overall project kept within that budget. So we're looking at options where we might avoid having to go to that expense. And certainly there's others around the state that appear to have been built without trade waste roofs over them. So that's what we're looking at to see if we can avoid that cost.
Could be one here with another one in New South Wales.
Through you again, Mr. Acting Mayor. Yes, the Sales Committee has talked about these issues for a long time, and the last Sales Committee or the one before, we spoke about going and having a field trip to look at some of the other truck washers and seeing how they've done things as well. So that's still on the cards to do in terms of the truck wash. As David's mentioned, the loading ramps are still underway. So,
Answer your question.
Yeah, no, still be there.
Councillor McNish.
I'll never see it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You never know, Mike. Just looking at the graphs, the number of panels sold in the operational for this month, I'd be very reluctant to spend 1 more cent on those sales. See, the one big thing we've got going is the winter sales, and those numbers are increasing as more and more people go into Auctions Plus. I've got to have a very hard look at these sales, whether or not we can afford to put money into them. And I think they're going to be wide open. That's my opinion. And like I said, the future has been regional sale yards, Inverell, Warwick, Centre, maybe Hamilton, I don't know. I think the days of the big numbers here are a thing of the past. When you look at that, those graphs there, it's really telling just how many stock are going through the yards here. I know what other councils feel. I'm very concerned about the future of these sale yards. I think they're almost a thing of the past.
How come Canada?
I think, as you know, with my finance hat on, it's something that I have raised before as an issue. I guess we'll have to see how it bounces back after the events of the past few years, and just wait and see, I guess. But it is something I share the concern.
Councillor Bronwyn Petrie, then Councillor Mike Petrie, and I'll Gary Little.
I'm happy if Councillor Mike wants to respond first, then I can go.
Thank you, Councillor Petrie.
It's not a problem.
You only got to realise though, places like Gunnedah down there, they've got no numbers there. They sell usually 5,000 to 6,000 cap, but one of the biggest droughts out. There's just no cap around the district in any of the districts. And they just got allocated $6.5 million to extend their sale yards. And they're selling 500 head of cattle a bloody week. So the things are going to turn around. They have to. I've seen this all before. It's like they reckon sale yards were going to close down before when Calm came out. I tell you what happened, Calm closed down and the sale yards still go.
Councillor Bron, repeat.
Thank you. I was wondering with the double decker loading racks, there was also the issue of ground yards and altering the lighting so that the shadows weren't going across and supporting the cattle. I'm just wondering what's happened with that, because like Councillor Knight, it's frustrating when this has been going on and on and on, and I know of that 600,000 we've spent money on that ridiculous plan, and also paying the engineer, external engineer to travel to Warwick and Glendinas and look at everything, and the best thing they could look at was with Murphy's and Rollhead and all the truck washers that they've done through Queensland for a third of the price. So I'm just wondering for an update on the ground yards.
Respectfully, Councillor Petrie, certainly they're key aspects of the lighting ramp still. We still want to make sure we put the lighting in so there's no shadows. That's part of the issue, is that we can't go ahead and do the lighting now at this stage if we do alter the position of the lighting ramp. So certainly we want to progress it as urgently. We certainly make the urgency of it, because we want to get the whole thing done so it encourages more stock going through there. But if there's a change in position of the lighting ramp, then we'll have to change the angle of where the lighting is. At the moment, we were hoping to hook on some of the existing lighting that's already there. So that's, if we change the position of the lighting ramp itself, we'll also have to just reassess the lighting. The round yard idea was, because we were going to have the lighting ramp down near the original truck wash proposal, which was totally separate to the yards, and the existing yards down coming off the middle of the lanes to the east of the existing complex. So that required the lighting of the circular yard to be able to try and get the cattle coming onto the trucks. We're happy to actually be able to just utilise the existing lanes, so we minimise the extended modifications we have to do the yards.
So with time frames, how far away is this? Because I remember the time when I went out with the truck driver and we looked at it, it was just stupid place to put it, stupid place to have the loading ramp, and came up with exactly what you came in and said this is what we should do. And I was told to shut up, that if we didn't use the money in 6 months, we would lose it. I actually was told to shut up. Yeah, common sense is vital, and a very similar thing has been proposed. So are we in danger of losing that grant money or not? And also with the proposal thing, can't we in this map before it goes out skip a little alternate proposed truck wash thing and just put an alternate proposed thing, so at least it's there so people can see it.
Probably the first part, Councillors, in regards to the funding we have, we do regular reporting on it, so it's, again, that's a reason why we want to get it done more than anybody as well, because we're constantly having to report and try to notify where it's at each month. So certainly we've asked for extensions, we've put extensions through on the project. The important of it is that we've got some funding in there already in our capital. We haven't got enough to complete the whole of the yards without the grant funding, but we have got an allocation for fees that we've taken in the sale yard budget, so we want to utilise that as a capital project. So that's another reason for getting on that side. The comment about changing the plan, can I suggest that for the expediency of the management plan as it is, it's probably better just to adopt it as the plan is now. And we can always put it up and amend the plan at a later date in another month, and just put another, the addendum can just be as simple as a new location plan being put in the document. But at least the plan gets adopted and is in place. We certainly will be trying to act on the whole complex, the two parts of it, as soon as we possibly can.
Councillor Vera, in regard to this report and recommendation?
Absolutely.
Good.
I share all the council's concerns, those for those against it, particularly Chair Councillor Petrie and the two Petrie's concern. However, we've got the cattle numbers in this district to make this a regional selling centre, if there's been no attempt by any of the agents to do that, that from my place north, virtually all the cattle goes to Stanfield for the winter sale or Warwick. They go as far as from the right and very tip of our shire, they come down to Stanfield for the winter sale there. I don't know why we don't come from Tenterfield. I've asked one of the agents, and he said, the Tenterfield yards do not present cattle well. It's not the Tenterfield agent, another agent that I said he should be looking at Tenterfield for a selling basis. And he said they just don't present cattle well. So unless we do something, I agree with Councillor McNish. I think we should be really and truly looking hard at these targets, whether we're spending more money on it.
Okay. I'll put the officer's recommendation, which says the council adopts the Tenterfield, well, up there, we've got the amended one. All seen it? All in favour? Against? You're against? Want it recorded? Okay, carried. Page 56, item BNV 12/21, water and waste, updated policies. Officer's recommendation that council adopt the updated construction over and adjusted adjacent stormwater sewer and water mains policy. I'll move it to the second of the order, Mike Quigley, and Wednesday August, we need this Gary Berry. Manager of water and waste, Julian.
So this is just an update on the policy we already have in place, which is the construction over to include adjacent. So adjacent is just the zone visuals over where anyone's going to do any construction, so that could influence the shop. So the adjacent part of it is just to cover that off, so that we don't have people through that, whether they're stored sewer or water.
Any questions of Julian in regard to the recommendation report?
Just,
Councillor Bob?
thank you, Acting Mayor. Just the 3 metre corridor, you're talking about that's the total bomb. On each side.
Anybody else have any questions of Julian? Okay, I'll put the recommendation, all in favour? Against? Carried. Page 61, item DMV 13/21, support for a moratorium on mining in areas affecting the Clarence River catchment. The recommendation is the council supports, does not support, so we've got it each way. The Clarence Valley Council in its following motion. 1. Note that at the council meeting in November 24, council resolved inter alia to oppose mining in the Clarence River catchment and to seek the support of both state and federal governments to impose a moratorium on further mining exploration licences and to cancel existing licences. 2. Acknowledge that this motion does not affect existing mines or quarry operations. 3. Thank the Honourable John Barilaro for his response on behalf of the Minister for Energy and Environment, Honourable Matt Keane MP, and advising that Council was not seeking an explanation of the process of developing mining in the Clarence River catchment, but was advising the state government of its strong opposition to mining in the Clarence River catchment. 4. Advise the Honourable John Barilaro that the Council representing the community's strong opposition to such mining is asking for the Clarence River catchment to be scheduled in the relevant environmental planning and mining legislation as a no-go zone for minerals mining due to the catchment's almost unique natural and cultural values, many of which depend on the Clarence River and its tributaries, which support essential and valuable industries which contribute to the local economy, as well as providing drinking water for Clarence Valley, 51,000 plus residents, Coffs Harbour City Council, 76,000 plus residents, and water for local agricultural industries. 5. Write to the Premier of New South Wales, the Honourable Gladys Berejiklian, advising her of Council's resolution and seeking her support for a moratorium on mining in the Clarence River catchment. And 6. Write to Clarence Valley Council to advise of Council's resolution. I will move in a second to deal with it. Gary Berry. and Bob Logan, acting executive assistant in media.
Oh. I wasn't ready for this.
Okay, any questions? Gary Berry.
I'd like to just know that we do not support the Clarence Valley in the following motion.
Okay,
Now, I can,
hang on. You're just proposing that we do not support. Okay?
I'm just going to clarify one.
So, I think we need to deal with whether you've got a second for that before we...
I'll second it.
Okay, so now, Councillor Berry, we have a mover and a second.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify number one. Council resolved November 24. I suppose it was sometime in the past. But I thought that was why it was opposed there was the fact that they were talking about coal seam gas line. People know everybody's property, and I think that's why the reason that was opposed. And strike out number 2 because it's irrelevant if we do not support it. 3, you can leave there, I think. Strike out number 4. And regard to the Premier of New South Wales advising our position, regard to Clarence Valley advising our resolution.
Okay, now we have a motion that we do not support it with amendments to the response, and we've got a seconder. We will need to vote on that particular thing, and if you're against what Gary, and I haven't finished the discussion, I'll just clarify, you'll have to have a vote. If that goes down, we go back and vote whether we support it as is. We can't have amendments all over the shop, so we're dealing with, we do not support this with the amendments. 2 is out.
So 1's in, 2's
in,
out.
2's out, 4's out, 5 and 6 are in. So is everybody clear what the actual motion is?
Yeah. 1, 3, 5 and 6.
One should be out.
1 was out,
Ask a question.
yes.
If we're not supporting it, can't we just vote against it?
That's why we shouldn't have anything in it.
We have to, Gary has moved a motion that it's got amendments to the original recommendation, so we've got to deal with that first. If you're against what Gary's talking about, you will be voting to support it, as is.
No, he's not moving it. What is the thing that we've got in front of us is what Clarence have sent to us.
Yes.
So that's their wording, except the date of 2020 is missing in number 1, which they didn't put in these. I mean, that's what it was, is 2020. So that's their motion, is what they've sent to us to either support or not support. Not that we're changing their motion, that's their motion. So all our job is to support or not support.
Councillor Mr. Dell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree that really it is our job to support or not support this.
Okay.
Motion.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that, what you say?
It's our job to either support or not support this motion from.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Councillor Bob?
Thank you. Just, it was crystal clear to me that all we're being asked to do is to give our support to what the Mayor has put forward. But I'd like to clarify, we talk about Clarence River catchment, so for us, for Tenterfield Shire, I guess we're talking about things east of the top of the Great Divide. So we're talking about the people down around Grafton not wanting any mining, right, east of the divide in the catchment. That's all I want to clarify. And if that's what they're asking for, we've just got to decide whether we're supportive of that or whether we're not.
Yeah,
And we can't amend it. Really, it's not our place.
Thanks for Paul's intervention. Sorry for misleading you. We are either voting to support or not support. So I assume, Mr. Dell, that we put it up, the council supports it, and if it gets rolled, it means we're not supporting.
3 years really.
Councillor Becher, I'll come to you in a second.
So we want to work 3 years.
Your question, John?
Not a question, this is more than coal seam gas. So there's a proposal for a copper mine at Canby, down on the way between Glen Innes and Grafton there. The Sons of Bavaria, so that's about 35 k's from Grafton. I'm not sure what Sons of Bavaria are looking to mine at Yorkshire, etc. But it's so broad brush. We don't, it could encompass all sorts of things, including, if you have a look, it doesn't affect the existing mines or quarry operations. So what if there's to be a new quarry, if we've got roads being built somewhere and we need a new quarry on the Eastern Fall, where it's, you know, you're trying to find suitable, you're trying to find suitable gravel stuff close by to our roads, to sheet them, etc. And if this goes ahead, it could well impact on our ability as council to have new little quarries as you go along the roads. Like, this is a huge catchment. So people, some people there, there are 10,000 signatures or something. Some people, whether they're even local residents or not, we don't know. And just said we don't want mining, but they're happy to use metals for all sorts of things within that vast catchment, but they just don't want to come from their backyard. So I hated having that gold mine at Timber. I have to tell you, it destroyed our lives. The interference, the walkover, the nonsense, and being stuck between the Greens and the miners and being badly treated by both. It was appalling. Wouldn't wish it on anyone. However, that was beyond the point. That was our personal experience. The fact remains, we need to have quarries to get road-based things. We need to have minerals for things that we use. And I mean, copper, you can't have electric cars without copper. So we're all pushing for electric cars, but we don't want to mine copper. We're all pushing for batteries, but we don't want to mine lithium. It could be a crystal mine at Ewingale. Ewingale's got those massive crystals in those mines there. They're not being used at the moment, but there could be a need for them in future health things. Who knows? This is just so broad brush, I cannot support it at all, because it's different if it said, we want to support because we don't like the Kangi copper mine, or we don't like this, or we don't like that. It should be, any support we give, I think, should be on an individual mine basis, which, and the other thing is, we don't get to approve mines, state government does. So it's kind of like feeding the window, but anyway. So I'm against it because I think it's too broad brush and it's fraught with danger for us for simple things like quarrying for our roads.
Thank you. Councillor Forbes?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I strongly support what Councillor Bonham said there. Yeah, so I certainly won't be supporting this motion.
I'll just clarify where we're going with this then. When I put it to the vote, if you are supporting the recommendation as is, you will vote for the recommendation. If you are against supporting the recommendation, you will vote against the recommendation and it will be carried as not supporting. The only thing will be, regardless of what happens, number 6 will happen. We will be writing to Clarence Valley Council to advise of our outcome. Okay? Councillor Bott.
Thank you. Just, I mean, we could defer this until such time as Council seeks clarification on what their intent really is. Given what Councillor Bowman has spoken about, if that's their intent, mining across the board, that's one thing. If their intent is sort of this large-scale commercial operations, well, that should be specified, and maybe we could seek clarification on that. That's all.
Hang on. Anybody who hasn't spoken yet, got anything to say? Councillor Mike.
I think as a Tenterfield Council, we've got a big enough backyard to fix up ourselves without worrying about the council down there. Let them look after their own things. It's my idea of things. Like, why is it up to us to support or not support them? You know, they shouldn't come to us. We look after our council. We've got a pretty big backyard here to look after. Let them look after their own.
Councillor Murray, you indicated you want to talk?
Yes, through Mr. Chair. I agree, we don't have any intimate knowledge on this whatsoever. That's contradictory, but it's a very broad brush attack, so therefore I could not support it.
Okay. Councillor Tom Peters?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just think it's got too many sort of ramifications. I think it's going to cause a lot of problems if we go along with this motion. I don't think we should vote for it.
Councillor McNish?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I agree with everybody else. I think, the policy, parents about it, I'm not a council anymore, but I think it must be a green leading council. This is all part of the bigger picture of abolishing mining and all sorts of things, so, I'm definitely against it.
Okay, everybody's had a say, Councillor Berry. I'm going to go back to Councillor Rogan, who sort of half flagged that he may be moving an amendment, because what you're proposing is against, we're either supporting or not supporting. You're putting up an amendment, or do I put it to a vote?
Look, I just think it probably does need some clarification, but the overall feeling of the council here is that we're not supportive of it, so I'm happy to leave the amendment alone.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I moved an amendment.
It wasn't an amendment?
Well, it wasn't an amendment.
I just said that we do not support the Clarence Valley in its following motion. That's all we're voting on.
We've already stated we don't support it. Because you can't break the recommendation down.
No, I'm saying council does not support the Clarence Valley. Council
My policy out the word support.
Down the road, Mr. Della.
So, through issues, so what I'm hearing is that the motion is now saying the council does not support the Clarence Valley in the following motion in its entirety, and that's the amendment, I guess, to that motion is there, and that's all.
It's fixed still.
Yes, it's still.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we're all clear. What we're voting on is that we do not support. Correct?
No, and then if you want to do is at the top, just copy it, right? Support.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Strike that out.
Very good. Right.
Following motion, but we still need to include that.
Everything's there.
Yeah.
Everything stays. Because we're saying we're not supporting that motion.
But we will write to them.
That's
If it's carried.
Yes.
Okay. All those people in favour of the new wording on the recommendation that council does not support, and then all those words. Against? Unanimous.
Thank you. Morning tea's here. Morning tea's here.
Please. Motion to suspend standing orders. Councillor Berry. Seconded. Councillor McNish. All in favour? Against? Carried. Have a motion to resume standing orders, please, Brian Murray. Bob Ryan. Okay, now we have to move back to page 39, please, everybody, in the business paper. Mr. Council needs an amendment to part 3 of the recommendation. It was a typo in transferring the information into the business paper. Item 3, and I'll need to move it in a second at the moment to do so. We might go back to the original Mike Vickery, Bob Rogan, who said we deal with the matter if they'll accept the amendment. The 3 says Tenterfield Shire Council to investigate introducing a signposting policy for the Shire. Tenterfield Shire Council to provide Torrington Town directional guide signs and suggest the business owner investigate options for signage as managed by the DA process on private lands for advertising signs on their or another property. So would Michael and Bob accept that adjustment.
We're supposed to have to, we're only going to discuss it, you buggered it up.
Harsh.
That's right.
Yes, Councillor Levy?
Our signing policy says if you have a sign on your own land about your own business, it doesn't require it here. I believe.
That's providing it complies with the roads running through, is that correct? Does anyone?
That's two questions, David, would you like to answer both of them?
I am not 100% sure if it's in the statement here, but I think there's exemptions and I think the size and things like whether the size are illuminated and flashing, there's different aspects where you may have to get a DA approval for a specific type sign, but there probably are others that are exempt. Basically what this amendment calls for is just the council doesn't actually provide the business sign on the road reserve, and the council doesn't actually pay for it itself. So we're saying that we leave the applicant to actually go ahead and investigate the process or whatever means they have about. But we basically just put in the directional sign to Torrington. So we direct people to Torrington, and the business is actually in the village of Torrington itself. And once they get there, they can find their way to the business. But we don't want to actually be advertising businesses within the road reserve.
So white in the red.
Yeah, you're wiping the rest. My apologies, and we'll just copy the, otherwise it'll be copied to the committee minutes. Just number 3.
All 3 disappears and is replaced by the amendment in the black. Everybody clear?
That's the only one.
Okay, all in favour? Against? Carried.
Who's ringing?
Patent for Okay, back where we were, page 64. Item GOB 45/21, Chief Executive Appointment and Delegation of Authorities. The recommendation is that Council 1 formally revoke the delegations applied to the position of Chief Executive assigned to the Chief Corporate Officer, Kylie Smith, currently acting in the position of Acting Chief Executive Officer, from close of business 18th of July 2021, and 2, formally appoint Mr. Darryl Buckingham to the position of Chief Executive Officer, in brackets General Manager, of Tenterfield Shire Council from 19th July 2021 onwards, in accordance with the signed senior staff contract, and 3, formally ratify the 5-year performance-based contract in accordance with the standard contract of employment as required by the Office of Local Government for General Managers in New South Wales, and 4, delegates to the Chief Executive Officer, in brackets General Manager, the appropriate authorities and functions under the New South Wales Local Government Act 1993, Section 377, also in accordance with the instrument of delegation to the Chief Executive Officer, in brackets General Manager, attached to this report. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Michael Petrie, Tom Peters, Acting Executive Assistant and Media. I think Mr. Dell.
Through you, Mayor, pretty self-explanatory. This is really, sort out the delegations of authority for the new chief executive. And that.
Any questions, Brian Murray?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. And then what happens if, for some reason, Mr. Brett, Buckingham, I think it was. Mr. Buckingham came in, he's got tummy pains. Coronavirus has stopped him from coming on that particular date to comply with the job. What happens there? Do we put in something to say that Mr. Della will then be the acting? Merely speculating here.
No, I think you are, Councillor.
Yeah.
Look, I think across that bridge.
I think we would revert to the standard delegation. Any other questions of Paul? I put the recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. Page 67. Item DOB 46/21, the monthly operational report for May 2021. The recommendation is that council receives and notes the status of the monthly operational report for May 2021.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just take the thread and any questions.
Any questions, councillor Logan?
Thank you.
We get a
Just give me a second to find it.
No.
We
So
need
did
to
we
move
get a
in.
mover and a second? Sorry.
Just a second, Bob, sorry, I've been negligent again. I need a mover and a seconder to deal with it, councillor Murray.
Yeah.
Mike, please. Now,
Thank you. Okay.
Bob. Page 18.
Yeah, I'm with the item that opportunity exists for more food / hospitality and retail businesses operating in Aspen. I'm interested to know, and it talks about comments from visitors, about the local places that eat, weekends and that sort of stuff. And I saw stuff that we're all well aware of. So why is that a comment in here unless there is some sort of plan to address the problem? So what can we do to address that issue to try and attract more businesses, encourage more people to start up businesses, that sort of thing? So don't put a comment in there if we all know we can't do anything about it anyway and it's been going on for donkey's years. Just a comment, thank you.
Tess is coming to the meeting.
Mayor, look, I'm aware that Harry and the team have had discussions with Chamber about this particular issue. We are all aware that it's an issue, as you rightly pointed out. It's something that really does need to be addressed, and how we do that. I think the point of putting it in here is just to keep that awareness out there that it is an issue that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. I think we're all aware, Paul, but maybe there should be more thoughts about coming up with something concrete that we could do to try and attract more businesses. I don't know when's the last time economic people approached landlords, for instance, about rent and the cost of that, because that's a big factor. Staffing issues and that sort of stuff. I see this as part of the general decline. It goes along with the health system. It's the next biggest issue. And we've got to start trying to address some of this stuff. It's all right to say we've got a chamber, but
Councillor Berry?
just on the same subject, I've been at the recently and they were saying that they're flat out getting qualified staff to come to Tenterfield for some of their businesses. And the other comment is, why it's got a green star, it should just be flagged in red, I think. I know that they're meeting the deadlines, but to put that there where nothing's happening, I think it should have a red star. It's misleading.
Through you again, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think there is things happening to our economic growth and staff are talking to Chamber and to others about this matter. And so I think it's not like we're not doing anything about it, but certainly it's not an issue that does need to be addressed.
Any other questions, Paul? Councillor McNish?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Usual one, page 71. Administration building. I'm just not voting for John because this has been going on for 18 months. Now, at the moment, there's a meeting here, nowhere for the public to sit. Public should be allowed to come to a council meeting. That day we had the inspection, there was one person working. I noticed when we did the interviews there a couple of weeks back, there was no one working there whatsoever. I think it's up to some, I don't know the charges through this thing, but someone's got the pressure put on the buildings, so obviously just do it a day, take off, get go away for 3 or 4 days and come back. And it should have been finished 6 months ago. of located, that's, it's a million now. It's just dragging on, and I'm getting lots of questions down the street. What's happened with the Taj Mahal? Why is it open again? That's not because it came with the help, or you know what. But people aren't talking about it. And I think, not from the staff point of view, it must be hard. Some here, some there, some there, some there. Well, in the one central building. So I just can we please have a final date?
Through you, Mr. Marion. Yes, so pleased to advise that it is very close now, and indeed we have started moving more staff back into the building. I expect that in the next 2 weeks we should be open again for business there. That's my expectation.
Anybody else got any questions? Yes, and then to Councillor Brolin after you.
Yeah, just a quick one now. It's good to see the Rebel Radio paid the back rent invoices. Was there any hassle with that, Mr. Dillon? Did they
Through you?
jump up and down on the screen and that sort of stuff?
No, they paid without any. Yeah.
I thought they could. And the last one is only one sign that 89 Thedbury driven by Reynolds is rented. You know, I go past every day over a company out there, as you know, and the only one I can see which is still in operation is section of RMA, which of course stopped last week. So there's all those signs there. Now, commercial rent for those is about $2,000 a year. I've got a couple of signs in my opinion just up from there. I charge $400 a year, but there's a lot of income council is missing. And to my knowledge, even when I was renting that thing there, council never ever charged for that sign. So we've lost about 20 years revenue, and about the multiplied, it's quite a considerable amount of money. Plus, at the moment, it's an eyesore too, because they've dilapidated those signs because the businesses are no longer operating. It just doesn't give a good look to the town as you're coming in that way. So I just wondered if someone's who's in charge of signs or whatever, I guess it's probably people, same people looking after administration, looking at this all here. But so they're a little bit more proactive in getting this lost revenue back and tidying that area up. Thank you, Mr. Deputy.
Yes.
Councillor Brolin?
I've got a question, but just on signage. Corn Festival has approached council a while ago about renting one of those signs on a permanent basis, and we're waiting on Neville's report on which ones are structurally sound and which ones are available, etc., before that can progress. But he did say that with the signage, they had written to everyone who had existing rights to us, and of the people they've written to and contacted several times, only one has been forthcoming wanting to continue with the sign, and now obviously Section Green will not be continuing with theirs, so there's only one active sign being paid for, but there will be a second one as soon as the Horn Festival gets approval to actually put a sign there to permanently say that there will be a festival Easter time. The other thing was on page 51, to do with the legal dumping. I see one person issued with a fine for illegal dumping, so I presume they are to go to the rubbish and find out. But I did hear yesterday that there's been wardrobe and something else dumped out on the way to the west on the first one.
No further questions? Very good. Any other questions? I have two on page 99 and 104. The tip shop at Drake, 176% spent. And Torrington landfill closure, 252% spent. And on page 104, Jennifer Main's replacement is 156% spent. So all three are well over the budget amounts. So what's happening there?
always answer that.
So I'll start with the Torrington one, which is the conversion to the transfer station. Unfortunately, original plans were quite significantly different from what we have ended up with. To do the works of encasing the asbestos into the drive for the bins, that's what's cost us the most in there, so that's the explanation. I am going for additional funding with grant, but I'm just waiting to hear back from them about that. So that should cover that one. And the water mains job, the reason that's overspent is because it wasn't ever budgeted for to do the work for the RMS promised that they would do through the main road. And that's why that's a big overspent. And also, what was the
tip shop?
The drag tip shop.
Listing and typical for
So it's actually quite a small amount that one's overspent by in figures rather than percentage. And that's because the sheds actually cost us more because we went to buy local policy to use sheds at 10 feet. So that's why that cost a little bit more.
Thank you. Any other questions in regard to the operational report and recommendation? Okay, the recommendation the council receives and notes the status of the monthly operational report for May 2021. All in favour? Against? Carried. Page 68, item GOV 47/21. Opposite recommendation the council receive and note finance and audit accounts report for the period ending 31st of May 2021. Mover and a second to deal with this. Vary, Brian Murray. Paul? Yes, sorry, welcome, Jess.
So this is the normal monthly report for the finance and accounts ending 31st of May. So at the bottom of that first page, you can see the general bank account had a balance of 8.185 million and the trust account had 466,000. Total investments were 4.37 million. For the month of May, there were no more release concessions granted, and the 603 certificates continue at a much higher pace than last year. There's been 206 applications year to date compared to 60 for the same period last year. 206.
Any questions of Jess in relation to the report? Councillor Murray?
Mr. Chair, just out of curiosity, whether considered water leakage concession policy update. Have we had a lot over the past 12 months prior to this? I know.
Maybe half a dozen. Not very many.
All favorably.
Sorry.
Were they all favorably addressed? In other words, were the concessions here?
I would have to check that with the rates.
Through years, so yeah, as just mentioned, there's been 6 or 7, but there have been some that we protected as well. So we don't accept them all, but obviously they're through the criteria.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll put the officer's recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. Page 72, item GOV 48/21. Capital expenditure report over the 31st of May. The officer's recommendation, the council received a note, the capital expenditure report for the period ending 31st of May 2021. William Senator, Roman Petrie, Mike Petrie. All yours?
Thank you. So this is again the normal monthly update on capital expenditure. Full details are in attachment 1
Any questions, Jeff? Bronwyn, you've just made it. Put your hand up higher.
This one. Under the Shirley Park cricket net replacement, which is grant funded, and it says that's completed last year, so will we we'll still do that in budget, won't we? What happens if there's a credit to it somehow?
So the grant funded portion has been fully spent, and there was
76%.
oh yeah, that was fully grant funded. So as far as I know from the parks manager, that's all on track. But yeah, if you don't spend full grant, you have to refund if there's any balance remaining. I believe you probably could, but I'm not sure exactly how much the lighting is going to cost.
Any further? Councillor Wall?
Yeah. The art installation on Tenterfield Creek, which is sort of half done. The money's been paid out, but it says there's a note there that's waiting for Crown Lands approval for some of the sites, so I assume so that those bits can go ahead. So is it the time frame and the delay that might cause going to impact the grant completion by that sort of thing?
Not that I'm aware of, we have to check up on everyone development manager that's his project, but that's the latest I know. Just then waiting for the paperwork.
Any further questions? Okay, I'll put the officer's recommendation. All in favour? Against? Carried. Page 74. Item RC 15/21, report to committees and delegates. In this case, the Tenterfield Borough Council Traffic Committee meeting on Thursday, 10th of June 2021. We received and noted. Can I remove in a second to deal with this, please? Tom Peters. Ryan Murray. Please, the chair. In his absence. Tom, you were at that meeting. You want to answer any questions if there are any?
No, I think we're very right. Very long as the side of the Thunderbolt Way, sort of not in the right place.
Okay.
As Gary Berry, Councillor Berry pointed out, everybody in the middle of the road, who really just know
Any questions of Tom?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to familiarise myself with this. The lighting request in Rice Street, New England. What does all that mean? Are they redesigning the overhead? The one in Rice Street. It says, oh, I'm sorry, it's number 3.
David, council will answer that one.
Just going here, thank you. I just update, that one relates to the pedestrian crossings. Sometime we've actually been chasing a design to upgrade the lighting at the 3 pedestrian crossings in Rouse Street and CBD. We're looking to upgrade the standards of the lighting so it's safer for pedestrians. Now that's been through a process with Central Energy where we have to get consultant designers to design the lighting upgrade. We've got that, had that back, passed it on to Central Energy. We were having trouble getting a decision now on a finalised decision, but that's now with the assistance of Transport New South Wales. They've been chasing up as well. They were having the same difficulties, but they've now progressed where they'll be doing some geotechnical investigation at the hospital of Transport New South Wales to verify the foundations for the new poles that have to go in. So that's sort of getting some progress now, but it relates to the pedestrian crossings and improving the safety there.
Councillor McNish,
I'm sorry, can I answer?
Yes, Tom?
I may answer that. So, where is the cost borne? Or borne by who?
Yes, the cost, we're actually allocated some funding from Transport New South Wales because this is a new highway. So we had the legal was an initial allocation of $5,000, which was to pay for the consultant design. So basically it hasn't come from council's funds, it was funded from Transport New South Wales. And Transport New South Wales are now dealing with any ongoing matters. We're sort of just liaising with the council and the traffic committee.
Thanks.
Councillor McNish?
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Number 17, Shipman's Hill appearance. I'm pleased to see it's mentioned here. I've got 20 days old a day up there, I'm in and out every day. I've often thought about how that could be improved. First of all, the signage in Bengal, that they're an eyesore the way they mismatch of signs, that's been dealt with. Those two bridges they built, I still call them Stony Creek bridges, but slightly different name now. There's weeds growing between the cement barrier and the road pavement. It just looks very, very untidy. They're only 30 new bridges at 10 or 15 years old. And further up, the worst part there is the road surface. People just literally falling to pieces. Rough as anything off Lake Street Hill all the way back into town. It really moves to get that hot fixed. There was at one stage, I believe. Dave, was it?
I believe it's a responsibility of Transport New South Wales again being the new railway, but I believe they are looking at a program of works from the hill all the way into town and then from the northern side. So they're obviously aware of the condition of the pavement and obviously our side is with the beautification of the sides of the road. We're sort of pursuing it through the Traffic Committee and the Parks and Guards Committee to try and accentuate the effect of entering the town so that it also have a flow-on safety effect of slowing people down.
And also that little park there between the bridges, Apex Park I think it was called, that's potentially a beautiful little park for people to stop, and it always looks so untidy. The pavements all broken up and having a water tank doesn't help of course, but a few gardens in there and a little bit of perhaps curb guttering in the driveway or whatever, it really, really enhance that and give a very positive look to the entrance to the town.
Through you, Mayor, thank you. I note that and have a discussion with our Parks
To the list of expenditure. Councillor Bryan. We've got the link back up already.
Just with Shipman's Hill, I had asked Harry a couple of months ago if we could please have an urgent meeting at the RMS or whatever you can call it about that bypass design because we haven't had one for some time and last time I know Terry had to get them back on track because they've changed it again to not have it designed to flow the traffic into Tenterfield and really just feel like made a conscious decision to drive off instead of which that is other weird thing. So can we please get an urgent update to councillors on where they're at with that bypass design so we can check it again, please, including putting an overpass with the railway crossings so that our railway museum isn't an island between the two things. The other thing, where are we at with the parking? Dave, you said we're going to get some consultants to do a parking assessment. Strategy with that?
Yes, we're still pursuing consultants to do a parking review of the CBD area to look at tidying up and maximising the parking, but we also have some other factors with the lane bays and particularly disabled parking bays. So we've got a couple of these spots near the doctor's surgery at Knowlesworth Street there and also in High Street. I've got some drafts, some documents prepared for consultants to seek pricing on that, but I haven't actually got the pricing back yet or paying pricing, so it's still we're doing pricing.
Right, and the other one was, if we're talking to RMS, where are they at with the Drake footpath so people can get from Plumbago Creek up to Arrow Street without having to walk on the highway to
Councillors, with that one, we've had some consultation with the community down there at Drake on a concept that council prepared. We've now passed that concept and put it on to Transport New South Wales because it is the highway that's there on the way through. They're from the concept they're going to see if they can get some funding. It's quite a significant project in society. They're going to see if they can receive some funding to actually finalise the design and have a complete design right the way through, including the pathway extension.
The footpath's more important than the island because we've got people on a daily basis either on the highway walking to and from school or to and from the shop. My final thing was I don't understand about emergency signs. It says these signs are encouraging visitors to stop and walk near the traffic area. So what if the signs themselves too close to this?
But the merchant put a sign out, and it is virtually only the edge of what would be normally the track. and you trees, you've got to walk down the road. So it should be on the road where you actually walk to the book.
So it's not our council heritage sites, it's the road.
With that, we're actually, have a look at the photos. We're going to pass information on to the Transport New South Wales rep. They're going to make some suggestions for some additional signage that might alert people that there might be people there, change activity, people looking at signs, just so that we enhance the safety of Mount Lindesay there at that point. So that they'll have a look at all the signage and the whole arrangement in those two locations.
Councillor Herring?
Yeah, just to add with the Shipton Hill beautification, possibly 20 years ago, the ratepayers wanted to beautify Shipton Hill, and we could not do that because of the RMS restrictions. And I just feel absolutely frustrating when we've got those trees out there and they don't look like anything move. We should be really pushing RMS to allow us to do something.
I can answer that to Mr. I can answer that a little bit now. I've been talking with RMS over the last 12 months privately, and they're more than happy to meet councillors. There are trees in the woods. They would like more trees. But no problem. That's fun.
There's no problem, Councillor Murray. The biggest problem is who's going to look after it?
Sometimes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Oh, forgive me.
One at a time, please.
Right.
David, would you like to answer that?
I was going to add, certainly our mayor has been pursuing this with the Transport New South Wales reps, and that's why it's got to the stage where we're taking it to the Parks and Gardens Committee. The trees will ultimately be council's responsibility though. The RMS won't maintain the trees when they're well and truly outside the clear zone of the highway. So, that's why we're having those discussions with them. We want to see it beautified and enhanced. There's a lot of investment that the community got in there, so we certainly want to enhance it for safety reasons as well as aesthetics. But we also need to be conscious that it is the highway and an open 100-kilometre area, so that's why we're having those discussions with Transport New South Wales.
Okay. Any further questions?
Well, the northern side of town coming in, round the railway line, bridge over Browns Creek. It's just about ready to fall in the creek. It's not a good look coming in from the north. Edge of town, and the bridge is going to drop into the creek. I know it's a long pass across the railway. I don't know who can go to the railway, but anyway, it's just about ready to flat.
Well, it's not in the report. Which is that the railway bridge? Okay. Oh, yeah, no, that's underhand and it's all coming.
Not in relation to the report. We're dealing with the traffic committee report.
It is coming.
All in favour? Against? Carried.
John was at the
Item RC 1621. Recommendations that town receive and note the report from the Country Mayors Association meeting 28th May 2021. Obviously the mayor's not here, but I have a mover and a seconder to deal with it. Councillor Berry, Councillor Murray. Any questions that can be taken on notice? Councillor Clifford, Brian?
Page, I'm not sure, it's 86 of the report. 14 there, where it says that the country mayors advocate to the New South Wales government to waive New South Wales government costs associated with essential water infrastructure such as access to Crown and state parks and biodiversity offsets. I remember the Deputy Premier saying that, for instance, I think it was Wayne Dam was going to cost 600 million, but they'd have to pay 400 million in biodiversity offsets, etc., etc. I just find it extraordinary when over 9% of the state is in national park, why we as state taxpayers, etc., have to pay for additional biodiversity offsets for the cost of nearly another dam. And it just happens every time. So I hope that that is successful, because it's just a terrible waste of public money.
So it's a comment rather than a question. Any other questions?
No.
Put the recommendation, all in favour? Against? Carried. Page 90, item RC 17/21, report from the Board of Regional Organisation Block. The recommendation is that the report of the Board of Regional Organisational Councils Block, meeting Friday 14 May 2021, be received and noted. Can I have a move in a second to deal with it? Mike Petrie, Brian Murray. Any questions in regard to the report? All in favour of accepting the recommendation? Against? Carried. Item on page 98, item 99, sorry. RC 18/21, report from the Murray-Darling Association. I'll move that we accept. Deal with it, second. Bob Reagan. Any questions in regard to that report? John?
Yeah, a comment, Section Mayor. I feel a bit disappointed with this report. The reason I'm disappointed is the fact I would have thought that you would have advanced some sort of argument to maintain membership of it, but there's no such advance of that. I even remain a member of the Murray-Darling. So you've got comments in here about missing link, study tour. I know what's wrong with that is to come with you. Something here about the conference itself probably provokes many questions and got answered. Or I would prefer to plan some questions and what sort of questions were of concern to you and what sort of answers you would have got. That left us hanging there, so that was a unique event with all government departments involved. Represented for the first time, or hopefully we'll get some. Yeah, so
it's not a question, Don, it's actually a comment.
I'm making an observation, that's what I'm saying, so I'm just wanting to be noticed, but and then just said here, transcripts of all speech are going to put on, well, the transcripts of all parts, national comments is already there, so you really don't have to be a member to access these.
I'll speak there because it's comments. The transcripts are all there. The fact that we're talking about the membership is not part of the report. It's part of another process where you can put up a motion to not be a member if you wish, moving down the track. We are dealing with the actual report. We've made observations. I've taken them on board. Anybody that's interested in the detail of it, I didn't want to fill out the whole report of the business paper with the actual motions that were moved at the AGM, the reports that were there, because they're far too detailed to go in. Are there any actual questions?
I was wondering what sort of questions were provoked, and I was also wondering whether they addressed at all the huge transmission losses of moving from the Hume Dam all the way to Western New South Wales and into South Australia, and whether they're still talking about having water trading zones to help overcome it.
There was a whole range of different reports there, but one that were very, very detailed. There was a lot of conjecture about the right approach. The good news was that, as I said in the report, that all the different government departments that have a bit of skin in the game in regard to water and all offset questions of water are all there together, and they are supposedly coming back with the detailed answers to the questions that were raised on the forum. It was quite heated at different occasions. There was one motion at the AGM that was actually wanting us to accept a report that hadn't even been issued yet, hadn't even had any findings put out on a draft report, and was put up as a motion to accept it. I moved the motion that we not accept it, and it was thrashed. We got it. It's out. But there's far too much detail for me to sit here and go through it item by item. It's all on the, or should be there by now.
No, but what sort of questions? I mean, your questions aren't going to be on a transcript.
My personal
You said
question.
the conference itself probably provoked as many questions as we got answers.
Well, the obvious question is the plan actually working?
Well, no, that's not.
I've come away from there saying it's not working, from what I heard there.
I can guarantee it's not.
Minister Payne managed to combat a few answers. She copped a fair going over in her absence, by the way, from a speaker, and she summed it up the next day with one word, 2 words, sorry, we are. Because it was, are you meeting the requirements of the plan? We are. So,
Well, as a bit of an update, at least the New South Wales and Victorians are talking quite well together, because the big issue is the plan delivers water to South Australia whether they need it or not. And it comes from particularly from New South Wales South and from Victoria. And this is the issue we've got with the federal government, is that Minister Keith Pitt would not agree to Melinda Pavey's request for an extension. There's a set date by which they've got to put in all this sustainable diversion limitation things. But yeah, so he's refused on that, but there's still got a bit of wiggle room there somehow. Otherwise, it's just a nightmare for people in New South Wales. All the flood rates on the lakes of South Australia.
well, that was the general consensus that everybody agreed on. Everybody's got their own opinion on how it's all working and whether it is working. But there was no definitive answers come out of the conference, that's for sure.
Some people are doing very well out of it, and they want it to be delivered in full and on time.
Yes.
Some of the big irrigation players and other irrigators are going.
Councillor Forbes,
So,
Councillor Petrie.
thanks, Councillor.
Any other questions? Councillor Berry.
Just a first time the questions, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Were there any questions on getting rid of the barrages on the lower lakes?
No.
Maybe there should have been.
Maybe there should have been.
I can take it on board for next time.
Any other questions?
Can I ask questions?
Yes, Councillor Murray.
Why do you want the barrages moved? Down in the lower lakes?
Why?
Yeah.
Because they're artificial lakes. They were never a lake. They were the estuaries to the sea and remove them barrages, natural progression to the sea. And you've turned a saltwater inundated lake when the tide's high into a freshwater lake. You've lost all the fishery there, and happens that, and you've got people on the banks with their own private wharves enjoying fresh water, which is not natural.
Councillor Bronwyn, one more.
Just to further explain, in 1940 they put up 7 barrages in South Australia, it was for agriculture, to create those freshwater lakes. The fact is, you think that the mouth of the Murray should be gigantic. It's a tiny little piddly thing because of the sheer size of the lakes. And even after catastrophic floods in 2016, they still have to then, after 3 weeks, start dredging the mouth of the Murray again after catastrophic floods. What they need to do, they'll never to remove the barrages, but what we can push for is to modify the barrages to allow that estuarine flow. Because they've stopped that estuarine flow in and out, there's been a big sand island developed with vegetation, so it of course then blocks more water. The other thing South Australia's done, and it's not in the Murray-Darling Basin plan, so we've got 10% of the Murray not even included in the plan, it only goes to the mouth of the lakes. So the south east of South Australia, they have these massive channels draining fresh water straight to sea to turn swamp into farmland. So much water is going to the sea that is killing the seagrasses. In addition, if you look at them, it's worth looking at the map of South Australia. There's a thing called the Coorong. So from the southeast, there's this little narrow sandbank that goes all the way to the mouth of the Murray. So they did this Coorong diversion. So the water that used to come into that and flowed all the way to the mouth of the Murray no longer does. So all that causes the mouth of the Murray to block up, and you hear, oh, the Murray mouth's blocked. And everyone goes, oh my God, that must be terrible. Like, there's so much water in the Murray, how can the mouth be blocked with all this silt? Because people don't understand what's really there. So South Australia has gotten off scot-free for so long, but they have wonderful media to be able to turn people and say, oh, you need more water to keep them out of the Murray open. What crap. So I think we really should, and I'm happy to help supply something to council to give a very clear understanding of what has happened since 1940 with the Bayojos, the Coorong diversion and the southeast diversions, which helps our argument as to why that needs to be included in the plan and allocated for them to, like that, all that special they're delivering to the sea could be turned inland to the lakes, which would mean they would need less water from New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria.
Councillor Petrie, if you can come up with a small document in regard to that, I'm happy to take it to the Regional 11 meeting, next one, and pass it through to the National Conference. Councillor Berger?
Just a procedure, would that be better coming from Councillor Petrie as a motion to his council for you to take to the
Either either. It's got to come here, from here, and take to Regional 11, which then starts the process.
I'll bring it to council, that way everyone else has to approve what I'm for.
Okay, I'll put the recommendation, all in favour? Against? Carried. Page 101, that's RC 1921, which is the Murray-Darling Regional 11 meeting. The recommendation is that the council receive and note the minutes of the May 2021 meeting of Murray-Darling Regional 11. I'll move it, deal with it, Michael, second Bronwyn. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, whilst we're in this situation, I'm asking what became of the Parks and Gardens minutes? Why were they not on this agenda?
We deal with this one first. All in favour of the recommendation? Against? Carried. Question without notice, Councillor.
Yes, I'm asking why the Parks and Gardens minutes were not put on this agenda.
For me, Mr. Mayor, I believe it's probably a timing reason, but I'll be on the next one.
Thanks.
Little bit old news, yeah.
Okay, page 104, item RES 21, Council Resolution Register. The recommendation is that Council notes the status of the Council Resolution Register for June 2021. Mover and a seconder, John Gary, Ryan Murray. Paul.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, any questions?
Any questions at all in regard to the Resolution Register? None? I'll move the resolution recommendation again. For? Against?
I'm for.
Very looking to start. Carried. Okay, that completes the business paper. We're moving into confidential. Can I move in a second? We'll move into confidential, please. Barry, Brian Murray.
Yeah, take those back. No,
Just, yeah, can. Turn it on, paper later.
The recommendation session. In reference to IPC 011/21, our civil services plant equipment vendor RFC 05-20/21. The opposite recommendation of Council 1, accept Alderson Independent as a panel of preferred suppliers for hire of civil services, plant and equipment, be approved and carried. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, councillors, thank you. In recognition of the passing of former Deputy Mayor and Councillor Phil Yates, I'm going to request that we have a 1 minute silence. Before we do so, we pass on our condolences to his wife Cherie and family for his passing, and have a minute's silence. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.